Sometimes those transition pathways aren't always the clearest. Either there is a real lack of information about what a viable transition looks like, or there's too much information and people don't know where to start.
G'day, I'm Deborah Caldo, and welcome to the Red Giraffe Solutions Expanding Worlds podcast, where we aim to support you as you help your young person with additional needs plan for their future. A future where they are safe, secure, and live a rewarding and fulfilling life. From around the world, I share stories and share solutions from people making this possible right now. I'm a parent of a young person with additional needs, so I understand the challenges. Many of the people I've interviewed on this podcast have already helped me design a better future for my daughter, and I hope that they might help you as well to imagine what's possible for your young person. The transition from school to the next step, be that education or moving into employment, is a challenge. From my own experience, the support around it is less structured and often the options hard to identify. That cliff edge idea is unfortunately for too many young people likely to become a reality, which is why programs like the ones my guest on this week's podcast, Vinny De Falco from Think Forward, is talking about are so important. This is the first part of a two-part conversation with Vinny, where we're talking about transition programs. And these are programs that are actually effective and they enable our young people to reach their full potential. Think Forward is a UK-based organisation, but the programs she talks about are very much the kind of things that I've seen in other parts of the world, and which, when designed well, bring real change to our young people's lives. I also believe that by understanding exactly how these programs work, it enables us to give more effective support to our young people on their journey. But enough from me, let's hear from Vinny. Vinny, can we start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself and your role?
My role is Head of Supported Employment Programmes at Think Forward UK. Our work is primarily with young people and young adults who face barriers into transitioning from education to employment. And we provide personalised coaching that supports those young people, young adults, develop the skills and confidence that they need to succeed in the workplace. So all of our work centres around collaboration with schools, colleges, community agencies, employers, and that vast employer network. And really it's about providing comprehensive support that's tailored to the needs of each young person, with the ultimate goal of empowering that young person to fulfill their potential and become independent adults and have bright and fulfilling futures. So my role is, as I said, Head of Supported Employment Programmes. And really, I'm lucky enough to lead on all of our supported employment initiatives, which support young adults with learning disabilities and autism into employment. My career journey with Think Forward started back in 2017. So I was the first progression coach on our 5-year SEND coaching programme, which was called DFN Move Forward. And that's recently come to an end. So we've recently wrapped that up. But really, my background is rooted in experience as an autism specialist educator. And I worked in alternative provision, in special needs schools, mainstream schools. I've always been drawn to this kind of work because I myself had some learning challenges in school. I have a speech impediment, and that led me to really struggle with my confidence and my speech in school. And I think I had to build quite a lot of resilience at quite an early age to move through school as in general, socialising and getting on with my studies. So I think I was always drawn to support individuals who have additional learning barriers. And I like the idea of being that role model to support building of confidence and sharing my own experiences.
Do you think specialist education schools and that kind of thing don't necessarily have enough focus on transition?
I think it varies. I think transition in different areas looks really differently as well. Sometimes there is a thought that the word transition is quite scary. Obviously, it involves everyone around. So it involves the individual themselves, but it also means that there's a lot of resource needed to support a specific transition. And sometimes those transition pathways aren't always the clearest. Sometimes we find, really from speaking to our parents and our young people, either there is a real lack of information about what a viable transition looks like, or there's too much information and people don't know where to start. I think we've always prided ourselves, and our coaches have always prided themselves as navigators, helping to navigate that system of either not enough information or a little bit too much, if you like. So it's a Yeah, it's that word transition holds a lot of complexity behind it. And I think I've worked in schools where they do so much, they really care and they really want to support that young person to make that successful transition. But I think a lot of the time the challenges they lie around how early is that transition preparation being done as well? Because there's a real lead up. We have to empower parents. We have to get the young person ready for change as well. So I think there's so many moving parts to it. There's potentially families who they'll be like, "Well, actually, what do I do now? There's no transition plan. Where do I go from here?" And I think it really is about that kind of starting early, starting to think about it, even from primary school. I think one of the things that I recognize, but having been an educator myself, we don't have that conversation enough and early enough with our send young people. It's kind of like, oh, well, we'll get there. It's like, no, no, hold on. We won't get there. We must start very early. We must start those conversations. We must start looking at aspiration very early. Parents, young person.
And I wonder if that low expectation because of the appalling figures around the levels of employment, I wonder if that then impacts on thinking about transition. Because if you think talking as a parent, when I look at the stats and go, well, it's so low, what are the chances of my daughter getting into paid work? So
Yeah, I think we've experienced some of that as well in terms of I've spoken to parents who said my young person has been told they're not able to work, that they're not able to transition, they're not able to move into employment. And a lot of that is because they've heard lots of negativity in the past around your young person cannot do this, they're unable to meet this threshold. And that kind of negativity becomes rooted in how someone naturally would think. But I think also there's something around the role of parents as that young person's carer and the identity shift around, I am this young person's carer, but actually when they move into employment, what does my role become? How do I then proceed as being the person that looks after my child?
there's transition for everyone, isn't it? The decisions that you make as a parent in education are very different than the decisions that you make with your young person when they move into employment. Can we talk a little bit more about what the program is all about and how you work?
Yeah, just to kind of set the scene a bit as well. So, as part of Think Forward, we've actually got three programs that we run nationally. Our Future Me program is our 5-year in school program that supports young people in mainstream who experience a multitude of challenges that might render them as at risk of NEET. We also have a Future Leaders program. So, this is a newer program. We've just finished delivering the 2-year strand of work. And this is a pan-London program which has supported young Black boys in years 10 and 11 who have identified as being vulnerable to exclusion. So if you're thinking about the DFN Move Forward, it was our 5-year SEND coaching program. So it's delivered across schools and colleges in 4 locations. The program ended at the end of March. We did a final wrap-up of delivery. So the main crux of our program there was our work centered around individualized progression coaches who are based in schools and in colleges who followed 283 young people on their journey through education and into further pathways, including, and in the main part, sustained paid employment. So our program adapted to meet the needs of the young people, some of whom moved into the community naturally on that 5-year journey into work. And the main deliverables, the kind of main interventions that were delivered on the program were that holistic, bespoke, one-to-one coaching to support the building of work readiness capabilities, group coaching, parental engagement, and what we call ready for work activities. So insight days where we take young people to businesses to understand the different roles that occur in those businesses, what it's like to work in that business, and also business mentoring, which we do with our corporate partners. And one of the things we found is work in context is so important for our young people, having role models in the workplace to support them to understand what roles look like, what behavior in the workplace should look like, and also to get them to experience what a role is. We've had lots of young people who say, oh, I really want to, I don't know, I really want to be a plumber. And when you take them to have that experience, they think, oh, no, that is not what I thought it would be at all. And that's really, really important. It's really important to try before you buy, as it were. Go somewhere and think, I'm interested in this role. Let me explore it. Let me see in context, is it for me? So we do a lot of that kind of experiential opportunity for those young people. So we worked with the schools and the colleges to identify those young people who were really in need of having a core person to support them in their journey into work.
So this was really working with schools and colleges in terms of careers guidance in some sense, was it?
The main part of our work was really that kind of holistic coaching side of things, but We ended up working very closely with careers teams, careers leaders in the schools, just to complement and support and leverage opportunities for the young people to have those experiences in the workplace, and to understand what kind of skills and what work readiness capabilities they would need to successfully move into the workplace. The aim of the program was to help that young individual to build that toolkit of skills and experiences, that kind of confidence to go out there and really shine in the way that maybe they might have not thought they could before. So it's giving them that role model, but also the toolkit to wrap those skills around their transition into the workplace.
What age were the young people when they started? How old were they?
So we worked with young people from the ages of 15 to 24. So as a coach, I had a cohort of 16, 17, 18-year-olds from the very start. And the absolute joy of seeing them move through and progress over those 5 years into other educational experiences, but then stepping into that world of work and just seeing their growth over those 5 years was something really, really special, something that it's been a real pleasure to witness and to be alongside them on that journey as they progress.
If you're talking about the program being 5 years, I'm assuming that was to gather information and to use that moving forward. How exactly do you do that? Do you collect, I'm going to use the word data, or if I say it with the wrong accent, but that sort of information, how does that then guide the next part of the program? And how important is the gathering of information and making sure that we learn from what we've done?
Yeah, I think that data gathering was really important. Really, I think that the data that we collected from a very early point, it was very much around the young person, their aspirations, a baseline of the skills that they already have, or that they perceive that they have, and actually how we can help them to progress over time and how we can help them to grow. But all of that early data and the data that we collect throughout the work that we do with these young people really helps us to paint an accurate picture of where the need is and where the gaps are. And when it comes to the barriers that the young people are facing, through a lot of the data that we collected and the learning that we've undertaken, we've known that it's vital to keep changing and keep amending the way that we deliver as we move through. An example being, this is more of a personal example actually, I worked with a young person who really wasn't used to doing kind of one-to-one work within school or anything like that. And actually, I really had to get to know that young person, as you do with all young people. But it took a really long time to get that young person to sit with me and feel comfortable doing a one-to-one and having that kind of communication and that kind of discourse around their skills. And this young person said to me, I don't have any skills. So actually, I'm not sure why we're having this conversation. I have no skills at all. And I said, I find that really hard to believe. I said, I can already see you've got great communication skills. But given that it was a really long-term program and we had a long-term approach here, it took about a year for us to build that rapport and that comfortableness and that kind of togetherness. By the end of the program, I mean, I'm thinking about this young person now, and he's in work. He's been in work for almost 2 years. And, often I'll get a LinkedIn message saying, oh, Vinny, I've had a really great day. He recently got promotion as a supervisor. I thought, fantastic. This is a young person who, had it only been a 12-week program, or had it been a 16-week program, we just wouldn't have got to the point where we could have really broken through that kind of communication barrier and that trust and that rapport building that took a bit longer. I think 5 years is quite a long time, and I think we've recognized that in how we're building our next strand. So 5 years is probably maybe slightly just too long in the essence of the work we're trying to do to move young people into employment in this strand. But I think the 5 years brought about lots of positive and impactful learning, and the continuous kind of sharing of that learning with our young people, with our parents, with our school partners. We identified lots of great kind of learning in those 5 years, and we were able to go back to our schools and colleges and say, hey, this is what we've learned. This is what we're learning. Does that sound right? Have you experienced that before? What else should we be doing, or what else could we be doing to enhance the journey or the transition for these young adults?
I'm just also interested in the more sort of hard statistics of how many people move into, when they go in a program like this, how many people then get the confidence to go to college or to go into paid work.
Those hard kind of stats that have come out of the program really are helping us and have helped us to build that next strand. So in terms of the young people that left school that are now in employment or training, that's 53% that came through our program and actually moved into those employment and training pathways. And we know that's way higher than the national average. And we also know that 46% of the graduates from our program have now been gainfully employed. And comparably, we know that the national government statistic for young adults with learning disabilities is actually 4.8% of those are in work. We're almost at that 10 times that figure. So being able to have that data that says this is the impact of the program, it has really helped us to build that next strand. Of those employed as well, I think it's important that we mention that of that 46% of graduates that have moved into employment, 76% of those were in full-time employment and 24% of them were in part-time employment. And then ultimately across the 5 years as well, we've been able to gather data on how many young people we supported into supported internships as well. So across the 5 years, we supported 90 young people to access supported internships. So almost a third of the young people that we worked with, we supported into supported internships. All of that kind of data gathering has really, really helped us. And I like to always share this one as well. This is a stat that kind of, I guess we're really proud of, I think shows the impact that we've had from a school's perspective as well. So at the beginning of our relationship, almost 6 years ago now, with a school in Islington, they told us that none of their graduates went on to supported internships. It wasn't part of their transitions language. It wasn't part of their school's language. But last year, they told us that 46% of their young people who were leavers went on to supported internships. And they said to us, actually, the program's had a phenomenal impact for so many of our students. And it's really given them the tools to lead fulfilling and independent lives, which is everything we set out to do.
The types of programs that Vinny has been talking about here need to become the benchmarks for transition out of school. There's clearly not enough of them around, but the fact that they do exist should give us all hope that what's being learned by organisations like Think Forward will eventually become the way things are done. But there's also another important thing here as well, and that's to remember the role that we can play. We have to learn from others who have gone before us, and we have the same obligation to share with those following us what we've learned. When I think about where we were as a family not that many years ago, in terms of moving from school to where my daughter is now, I know that the rewards are very definitely worth the effort. On next week's episode, Vinny will be talking about some of the challenges around developing and running these sorts of programs. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope that the stories and the solutions shared on here help you as you support your young person to create their future. And if you know anyone who would find the ideas useful, please share the podcast with them. Of course, if you want to, you can leave a review, because that is another way families who need this information can find it more easily. This show is created as part of Red Giraffe Solutions. To find out what the Red Giraffe is all about, visit redgiraffesolutions.com, where you'll find more resources around daily living, relationships, purpose and financial security. I'm at Deborah Caldo on Instagram and Facebook. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to have a conversation with you on any of those. Bye for now.